Here we are. There we are. I love it. I love spontaneity. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. I am your cruise host, Jason, and thank you so much for joining us for All Access Pass. This is the very first one of the cruise, and I am very excited to be joined by these two gentlemen right here from War, the band. Do me a favor, a nice round of applause for Lonnie Jordan and Jerry Goldstein. Thank you so much, first and foremost, for getting up so early and coming out to be with us. I know you rock stars keep different time. You had a great show last night, by the way, too. Well, yeah,
Thank you.
If you're watching on TV, it was 2 nights ago, but what a fabulous, fabulous show that was. And I want to talk a lot more about the sound of War. But before we do, Lonnie, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to look to your left. And just in case some folks, I know, scary, but just in case some folks in this room don't know this man.
Let me tell you who he is.
Tell them who this man is.
This is the man. First of all, I met Jerry Goldstein when I was 17. I just turned 18 years old.
It's like 20 years ago.
I was only 12. So.
Yeah.
And Jerry is the reason how and when and where we met Eric Burden. And that's how we became Eric Burden and War back then. And he's the reason why Ronnie Scott's the last night that we played it with Jimi Hendrix. He was a great friend of Jimi Hendrix and many other rockers too. That's how we got involved in rock and roll. We didn't even know what we were doing back then. We were young, dumb, and full of fun.
Full of fun. Oh,
And
I think that's how that was originally written.
yeah, but Jerry, he had no clue what to do with this band because we had our own way of thinking musically, not by the books, but definitely from here. And he felt that vibe, and he took that vibe from the streets. And him being from Brooklyn, was it Brooklyn?
Brooklyn.
Yeah. New York, get out of here. I'm talking.
New York. Yeah.
Anyway, us coming from Long Beach, Compton, Watts, California. And
You're
yes,
straight out of Compton.
Yeah, straight out of Compton, that's right. And he just took that whole vibe and said, well, let's take it in the studio. I don't even know what a studio was. I didn't know then, but being crazy and wild the way we were, all he did was push a button, and that's how he helped us recreate ourselves, and he created the rest of us. And here we are today.
Here you are today.
Oh, wait a minute.
I was going to get into it if you don't.
I'm not done.
Yeah.
Do you all remember a song called I Want Candy? Okay. Not over. Do
Not
you
done.
remember a song called Hang On Snoopy? Now, do you remember Ba 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 with his friends? With his friends. And do you remember
My boyfriend's back and they're gonna get in trouble. They remember.
I told you would know this man, even if you didn't know this man.
And he took $1 from his earnings and made us. $1 made us. That's all we needed was $1.
$1.
It was cheap back then.
Yeah. He's $2 now, so
That's
it's
right.
gone up
Or
slightly.
3.
3.
That's what I told them anyways.
Yeah, that's all you needed to know. And
didn't
Jerry,
matter.
now correct me if I'm wrong. You were partnered with Eric Burden back in the day. So after the Animals, correct? Please.
Eric was my friend for a long time.
Yeah.
And we were sitting in the office one day, and his girlfriend showed up and went, Eric's going back to England. The last group of Animals just broke up, and he's given up on the industry, and he's going back. And I went, that's ridiculous, okay? This guy's got too much talent. I had met these guys about a month earlier, and I put them in studio instrument rental. SIR had a rehearsal studio, right? Just keep working on whatever you're working, because I couldn't figure out what to do with them. They were from one end of the spectrum to the other.
We didn't know either.
They could play anything.
Still
and
are.
everything, and they're their music was so eclectic, I just couldn't figure it out. But I knew that there was something special there. So, I was trying to get it, right? They were backing up a guy named Deacon Jones, who was a football player for the Rams, big famous guy. He was doing a Las Vegas review, singing like "Oh Baby" and doing one-handed push-ups and stuff.
At the Ragdoll?
At the Ragdoll, yeah. And so Eric walks into the office, and I start talking to him, and I say, I got this group. They're playing tonight. They're doing some Las Vegas review, but come on down, take a look at them, because they'll do a set by themselves without them, and see what you think. Right, so we get to the Ragdoll, and Eric and I and Lee Oscar, who was the original harmonica player, he was hanging out with Eric, right? So we went to the show and we saw Deacon Jones do his thing, and there were like 5 horn players, 4 background singers. I mean, it was like a huge
The
group.
Moretz, the original Ikettes.
The original Ikettes were singing in this group. Okay, so they do the set. And then the guys get up, and then the guys just start jamming their stuff, which is totally from R&B to rock and roll,
Jazz
yeah,
and
jazz, Latin,
Jazz and
whatever.
Latin and ska.
Country.
Right,
Country
and
Western.
Lee Asker gets up and jams with them. However, they think Lee is Eric because they don't know. They don't know who Eric is, And so the next day, I call Eric and I said, so what'd you think of the band? He said, I called a rehearsal for 4 o'clock. And he was going down and that's how Eric Burden the War started.
That's
and
amazing.
like 3 weeks later, we played 1 gig in San Bernardino to warm up, right? And then we played the Devonshire Downs Pop Festival. 100,000 people
100,000.
following Creedence Clearwater. That was our first gig.
And who was after you, though?
Jimi Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix. Yeah.
And there was the Grassroots, Strawberry Alarm Clock.
I mean, it
Little
was
Feat
like a
on
major
that.
festival
Feat,
with
yeah.
100,000 people for 3 days.
Marvin Gaye, yeah.
It was unbelievable. Otis Redding.
Janis
It was crazy.
Joplin, Otis Redding, yeah. They were all on that.
Just
Couple
to
of
name
the
a few legends that were in attendance.
And that was our first gig.
Mother of Inventions. They were after us.
Yeah.
Frank Zappa. Yeah.
Zappa,
Zappa,
yeah.
Yeah. Because I loved the piano player
Yeah.
back then, George Dukes. He had a lot of jazz
Sure.
musicians playing with him at the time, and I was into jazz, into everything. And when I say country, I meant country and western.
Country and Western.
Yes.
Yeah.
Today is country. Huh?
Both, country and Western. Both
and
genres
Western,
put
yeah.
together.
That's what I said, country and western.
Most artists will get up here and tell you that, we toiled, we played the bars, we played on the corners, we passed the hat. Their first gig was at 100,000 people following. That's not a bad start into the industry. So you guys have some amazing
I
stories.
couldn't see all those many people anyway.
It's probably
I was
better you
blinded.
didn't.
That was in the fog.
In the fog.
Fog. We'll leave that one alone. That's another story. Another
Fog.
book.
Yeah. Fog smells funny. That's interesting. I feel so good. Yeah. Now, before we jump too much, you guys have some great stories, and I'll get into your stories in a minute. But tell us a little bit about back in the good old days. I know we talked about the starting of War, but there was the Creators, there was Night Shift, there was some early days before War became a thing. Talk a little bit about the early days for us, Lonnie.
Now, if I can remember correctly,
There was a fog, you understand.
No, that was before the fog.
yeah, that was before the fog.
Pre-fog.
We played with many. Let me put it this way: touring. Well, we didn't tour as the Creators or the Night Shift, but we made our rounds. I'll never forget. Yeah, we played all
clubs,
the clubs.
yeah.
We did, and we looked for a lot of different musicians because a lot of us would end up going to jail for, tickets they didn't pay for, the warrants. So
Just the simple stuff.
so we were pretty much auditioning like a drummer. For instance, I'll give you a clue. Buddy Miles was one of the drummers that we auditioned, and we couldn't handle him because he was on his own, totally playing totally things that we weren't even. It was ahead of our time, and we were ahead of our own time, and so it was just too much being ahead of each other's time. So we had to not use him. But then our original drummer Harold Brown had come out of jail at the time, and so.
I'm noticing a trend with
good timing.
this group. Who's in the band? Whoever's out.
Yeah, but that was pretty much of what we did back then, just making our rounds. And
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But we drink a lot. A lot of Kool-Aid, lemonade, a lot of drinks mixed. Why are you looking at me?
Because you're the one talking.
Oh, is
We're
that
with
it?
you.
But I was very young. Again, young, dumb, and full of fun. I drank a lot back then. I'm surprised I'm still here to talk about it. And but
But you
through
are.
my music was healing, and the audience, you our Rock and Roll Hall of Fans, healed us. We healed you. We are a doctor of music. So we healed you, and you healed us through music. And that's why I'm still here. Besides my wife.
Well, let's be honest. That's the reason you're still here.
Yes.
Yeah. You mentioned your Rock and Roll Hall of Fans, which I love. You guys have been nominated 3 times, and I think it's a travesty that you're not in, to be completely honest. But
I'm not hurt.
you're not. Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. But your attitude about it is wonderful.
Yeah, because
This is what matters, right?
these are the people that matter. That's, like I said, our Rock and Roll Hall of Fans. Let me
I
tell
love
you
that.
something.
I love that.
Trophies do not smile,
Trophies do not smile.
and they don't connect with me in my heart, and it doesn't communicate with me. You do, you know. That's what I'm talking about. That keeps me going and
So,
happy.
I love that you say that, and allow me to go back a little bit, because when you and I chatted, when the 3 of us chatted back, and I think we did 2019-ish or somewhere in there, we did an interview, you said outright that when you actually got with Eric Burdon the first time, you accredited him because you said, these are your words, not mine, you said, I had an afro out to here, and I had an attitude to match it.
Oh, I did. I had a tude. It wasn't even called an attitude. It was a tude. Man. And not to mention my bell bottoms, my fro.
You were living it.
That's why I'm surprised I'm still here.
Fair enough.
I had a bad attitude, too.
But you accredit Burden for helping
He-
you figure
he-
out stage presence.
He taught
and-
me everything I knew then.
Yeah.
Like throwing amplifiers off the stage when I
Yeah,
get pissed off. But I was only mad, at the crew at the time because they were so high, and I couldn't
there was a
understand
fog.
why they sometimes didn't do their work. Me fog, and they were in a different kind of fog. So I would get very upset, but I was pretty much simulating my environment. My environment was rock and roll back then. And I saw a lot of people throwing guitars and, off stage and throwing them up in the sky
Breaking
and
stuff.
hurling and hitting themselves in the eye and people practically fighting on stage and all that. I thought that was in. But the worst part about it, which is not funny, is a lot of people, pretty much I would call it committing suicide. That wasn't good. That's when I turned my life around and said, I don't want to go out like that. I want to stay here with my fans.
Good for you.
See? And I'm not talking down about anyone or any of the other artists, but we were hanging out, and he's the one who introduced me to Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison. I mean, most of these
Hendrix.
people lived right down the street from him, not to mention down the hill from him, and would hang out at his house every day. He had the hangout house, where everybody, you tell them, everybody hung out. I didn't know who these people were because I knew the British invasion, like Eric Burden was with us, the Stones, and all those people. But Jerry, I didn't know who Jefferson Airplane was. I didn't know Jim Morrison from Van Morrison or Tim Morrison. I didn't know any of these people I was singing. I was just young, again, dumb and full of fun. And Eric would laugh, Eric Burden would laugh, and Jerry would laugh at me because sometimes I would get into it with them because they were high and I was drunk and I did not understand how they were acting, but I was getting this buzzed from them. And I said, what is that I'm feeling? This is not my whiskey I'm used to drinking or my weed I'm used to smoking. So all of a sudden I'm saying, wow, they acting funny. I had to ask him, what's going on?
Really high.
Acid.
Really high.
That's when I found out about acid. I was young again. I didn't know anything about that, but
Well,
I'm
I'm going to cut you off right now because
Please, before I go any
before we go
further.
any further, You guys told me the last time, arguably my favorite story that I've ever had from an interview up here, and I'm going to preface it, and then I'll let you take off. You and Burden are sitting at the piano, and you're working out Spill the Wine.
I'm
And
playing
there's-
this Latin groove
And
on the piano
some little guy gets up on the piano. Take it away.
with a Superman outfit on. And that was my first introduction to him. I didn't know that he was living there without him even knowing this guy's living at my house. And I didn't know it, but he knew it.
And it was
Jim Morrison.
Jim Morrison.
And unfortunately, he was an alcoholic. Okay. And I had a bar. I was living in Bel Air, and I had this huge house and this huge pool and everything. And
Right
just
across from Mr. Hilton Conrad.
you know.
Or Conrad Hilton.
Conrad
Sorry.
Hilton.
Same thing. Back then when I was drunk, it was his name was in reverse. Everything was.
Everything
And
was
even
backwards.
though I didn't drink, right, I had a bar that had every alcohol you could think of. Okay, because that was part of
It's part of the party house.
the game.
I
right?
can name it.
So, and Morrison used to come over every evening with his wife and just hang out and drink and talk and whatever. So we had a party one night, okay, and I invited all of our
All the
clients
people.
and people and friends and everything, and we emptied out the Whiskey a Go Go, I think, also, and we had the Rolling Stones and Hendrix and Jefferson Airplane, Beach Boys, and on and on and on and on. Led Zeppelin, okay.
Can you imagine being at that house?
Okay.
Can
So-
you just imagine?
So
being
this
at that
party
house?
is going on, and to me they're
You
just
probably can't remember it, but you
they're
can
friends.
imagine it.
They're friends,
I didn't know
And
who they were.
and Lonnie had no clue who anybody was. Okay.
Like, hey, it's that guy.
So Lonnie and Eric is sitting at the piano, and it's later in the night, and they're working out something, and Jim Morrison is, sitting is like in front of them, right?
Standing up on top
Yeah.
of the
Yeah,
piano.
sitting on.
Yeah, you're standing up there.
In a
with
Superman
standing-
costume.
The Superman, right? Just starting to sing, right? And Lonnie goes, "No, I'll tell you when to sing." And Morrison goes, "What?" He says, "Yeah, I'll tell you when to sing. Just like we're working something out. When you start your turn, I'll tell you when."
Calm down, Jim.
And again, doesn't have a clue who this
Whoever
is.
you are.
So all of a sudden, Morrison gets upset and takes the cover of the piano and
kicks it
kicks it right,
with his foot.
kicks it down.
Yeah.
While you and Burden were
And
playing.
Yeah.
Lonnie goes, whoop,
Just in time.
And Burden,
just in time.
Did Burden get his hands out?
No, Eric's hand wasn't on the piano.
Oh, okay.
Actually,
No, Eric
it was
was
just
just-
mine.
was just trying to figure out.
I was playing. What I was playing, we were creating "Spill the Wine" at that time. We didn't know what it
Dun,
was.
dun,
I'm just doing
dun,
a.
dun, dun,
I don't know. I'm just doing boom, bang, boom, bang, boom, and I'm getting into it, and all of a sudden, bam! And all I did was look up and said, "Is something wrong with him?" and because he was staring down at me, and then all of a sudden he went like this. I bet you like to hit me, huh? I said, uh-oh. Then I looked around to see if anyone else was like him. I said, am I in the wrong place here? He flew off the piano like Superman with the
He
Superman
jumped off the
outfit.
piano.
Yes.
He stood up from his stool, and the two of them are like, at each other.
We
right?
weren't fighting.
And they were both so
Bullying.
gone that they couldn't hurt. Either one of them couldn't hurt each other. if
Just
they wanted
Gumby.
to.
Just Gumby fighting.
So it's kind of like an old Western movie, in the black and white Western movies where they're rolling over the bar and the tables, and seriously, they're rolling over the couch, and everybody is looking at this, just laughing. I mean, it was just like,
Eric ran up and got his gun and shot the chandeliers out. And that's when I knew he was just as bad.
yeah, he's just as crazy as they were. Okay.
A kid from Compton, I bet you that got your attention.
Well, I'm the only one that ducked. When Eric shot the gun, I ducked, and everyone else is still standing there.
He's watching.
That's when I knew I was in the wrong place.
Yeah, well, what happened is Eric came down with the gun, like playing a whole country, like a Western scene, right? And he pulls the thing back and he aims at the chandelier and it goes click, and nothing, right? And everybody goes, Then the next one go boom. This guy dives. Everybody's going, wow, wow, what just happened here?
But I all I did was the last incident with Jim Morrison. I just put my finger on his chest,
fell down.
just like that, and he went backwards in slow motion, swimming. And I looked, and then he went, like he bent over slow mo, almost like yoga, a perfect yoga position. He went into a fetal position in front of the fireplace, and the fireplace was like raging. And he laid there, and all of a sudden this lady came running in. I think her
Pam.
name was Virginia Pam.
Pam.
Yeah. She said, "Where's Jim? Where's Jim?" No, she said James.
James.
She called him James. Yeah. And I said,
James
"Are you
Morrison.
talking about this guy here?" And she said, "Yes." And I'll never forget. She picked him up like a piece of paper. Picked him up and took him home, which he was right down the hill
Yeah,
behind
they
you.
live right near us.
Yeah, I said, wow. And so I was like, that was an experience for me, you know, and that's when I asked Jimmy, I said, now I know what you mean by, are you experienced?
But wait,
Which is also a good friend.
the capper to the story, which cracked me up, is who by chance was skinny dipping in your pool while all this was going on?
Who was in my pool?
His pool.
Oh, that was another one. These are stories in different parts of the room.
Without her clothes on, okay, with all of her clothes off, she went into the pool. You know, Gracie Slick.
Crazy slick. Can you imagine these parties? Can you just imagine these
But
parties?
that was kind of natural back then. You know, it was all cool.
But that didn't happen in Compton. So you can imagine what was going on in my mind. Whew.
You mentioned a minute ago something that is, you know, Jimi Hendrix is revered, obviously, for who Jimi Hendrix is and what he never was able to become, obviously, with the loss of Jimmy. He played with you guys on his very last night
Yes,
And-
Ronnie Scott's.
at Ronnie Scott's. You guys were on stage with him in
For a whole hour doing Mother Earth.
Mother Earth, and the
Yeah.
lyrics to Mother
Yeah.
Earth. are
When
very-
it all is up, you got to
gotta
go back to Mother
Mother
Earth.
Gotta go back to Mother
Is the
Earth.
song we were playing? Okay.
And that night, we lost Jimmy, and I know that affected you guys deeply. But that's, and I don't want to take it down. I mean, no disrespect to Jimi Hendrix, but what an amazing experience to be on stage for his last night, performing and jamming. I mean, you guys jammed. I mean, it was.
Well, we pretty much passed Jimi Hendrix a lot, you know, like from Seattle to L.A.
He was always in our lives.
Yeah, he was
because
always in our lives.
He was a
anyway.
good friend of Eric's, and then mine. He was a very good friend of mine because I helped.
Yeah.
I discovered him.
Yeah.
Very
So-
down to earth, very down to earth. Just a homeboy,
Yeah.
I call it. You know, so him playing without any, I would say, effects on stage with us. He just went back to where he
Pure.
started,
Very
and it's
pure.
just and that was the scary part. Again, the song that we were doing after his demise, you know, the song Mother Earth just resonated. You know, I said, "Oh man, dang, what just happened here?" And wait a minute, to make it all worse, we had to return back to L.A. back on that first 747 Pan Am airplane, which I was not accustomed to flying on, because I'd never thought that thing would ever take off from the ground. You know, but we landed at Heathrow on the first 747. And
So
then,
what does it feel like to be on hundreds of thousands of tons of steel in the middle of the ocean that shouldn't float? Never mind. Don't think about it. Continue.
at the bar?
Yeah.
And they had one. Yeah. Ella Fitzgerald, she was celebrating, she helped celebrate on the plane. That's when the bar was in the front of the plane, and aerodynamically they had to change it because everyone was at the bar. And-
Plane flew like this.
yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, and there was a
woo.
piano there. Ella Fitzgerald, she was singing, and you know, jazz was very popular besides rock and roll, but jazz was popular back then, and country and western. But it was
amazing.
popular though. Yeah.
Well, as you guys know, I do like to let the audience, I encourage the audience to write down questions on cards. So we'll go through a couple of these. We got a little time here. Charles comes to us from Florida. Oh, good question. Lonnie, if you had a mulligan in life and could change just one thing, what would it be?
I would marry my wife earlier than I did.
Oh, good answer. I concur.
Something I said?
I agree.
Oh, and that's my wife, not that one.
Yeah, yeah.
The one with the hair.
The one with the hair. Yeah.
And he wouldn't have spilled the wine on the console, but in reality, it got us the title to the song, so it was okay.
Steve wants to know, does anyone really know the second verse of Cisco Kid?
You asking me? It changes every night.
Yeah.
No, I know it. What is the second verse?
I know it. What is it?
You have to understand, we created all those songs on the fly, you know, and we never really wrote anything down. If he didn't push the button, everything got lost. Trying to duplicate what we recorded was just as hard as anybody else trying to duplicate our music. Our music was unique. We weren't really aware of it until we started trying to duplicate our own songs. Believe me, it was difficult. But
Well, Jerry, you created a mobile recording unit, basically, didn't
I
you?
did,
Yeah,
because they were
sure.
jamming hits on stage, and we're going, holy mackerel, I gotta capture that stuff.
And nothing was written down, or you had to record
they,
it live.
they
Never
would go in
remember.
the dressing room and start, you know,
jamming.
a jam, you know.
Start a rhythm and figure it
Yeah,
out.
and go walk on stage, and that was the first song, okay? And I would go, how come I don't have this on tape, you know? So I finally built the truck. But the fun part of what I did was a lot of their songs
Get high.
were jammed and created in the studio, and sometimes they didn't make any sense, right? So lyrically, you know, they didn't rhyme or whatever.
Still doesn't.
So I would have to take parts of the songs and mix them around. So the second verse was really the third verse, and the third verse was the first verse. And so after we finished mixing, I would go and edit for days and make sure that this stuff was commercial enough to play on the radio, okay? And then they'd have to learn the song because they had to go out and play it.
He would edit and drive me so crazy.
Oh, he'd leave the studio. He couldn't stand
It
it.
caused me to drink even more. That's the reason. So, but he did it, and he would make me come in the next day in the office, sit in the what we call the
In the
sound
listening room, yeah.
listening room, yeah. And I would listen, and I couldn't hear any different. It all sounded the same to me, and I said, yeah. I would lie to him.
Yeah.
By the
Yeah,
way,
that sounds great.
we still do that. You know, when we put stuff out, I still send them the dubs. and
Yeah, it sounds
listen,
good.
You know.
It's fine. It's fine.
He trusts his ears, I trust mine. If it feels right, that's what's important, though. You know, and he knows how to edit from his heart. I don't think it's his ears because he can't hear anything no more.
It's not about hearing.
Yeah, it's about the
feeling.
heart. Yeah, yeah. For me too. That's how I play. When I play on stage, I pretty much improvise. You know, because I don't know what I'm going to do, and believe me, I am nervous before I hit the first song.
I was going to ask you.
And yes, I am very nervous, and I can't have eye contact. If I do, I might pee on myself. So I
And
do.
that's
I
just
still,
his age. That's not the nerves. That's
Correct.
No, he didn't.
Definitely.
sorry, Lonnie. Sorry. I apologize. I couldn't help it.
But soon as I strike a note on my keys, me, Lonnie on keys, OG,
Performance mode.
then I'm good. I'm good to go.
Well, you told me backstage one time, and I don't know if you've used this a lot, but you told me one time because we were chatting, and you said thinking on stage is a
It's a disease.
Explain
Thinking
that.
is, well, when I start thinking, then that's when I start making mistakes, and I start thinking so much until then. That's when that other effect of me looking at people in their eyes, and I start tripping out, shaking, getting nervous, butterflies, stomach ache, and then I feel myself. But then I just have to not think. I have to click back into my improvisation mode and improvise, because you, the people, make me go there, and that's what it's all about. I have to click away from that thinking mode and let you and me perform together at the same time. That's what it's all about.
That's
'Cause
great.
You wrote the songs.
That's amazing.
We only picked up the pencil and the checks.
That's that's wonderful perspective, though. Dave comes to us from New Jersey. Dave was clearly there last night. Your next performance, can you please put the lime in the coconut? Some of you weren't there last night, I see. Another Dave, David from California. Saxophone and harmonica together is a very distinctive sound. When you hear that, you automatically think, oh, that's war. How did you come to that? How'd you hit on
This
Accident. He did it.
this was
He
this
did
was
it.
Eric's concept. Okay, the band originally that he saw on stage had 5 horn players. Okay, so he fired 4 of them, and they begged him to keep Charles. So he said, "Okay, I'll keep Charles." Lee Oscar was living with Eric at the time, so it's Eric's concept of putting the harmonica and the sax as a small horn section, you know, but it was really effective, you know. And I questioned it also. I went, "How can you do that?" And then I heard it, and I went, "Yeah, it's interesting. It's different, you know." And that was how it got that way.
It sounded good to me. I didn't care. It sounded good. It sounded like something new to me that I never heard before, which I love, unless you were into jazz. If we were playing jazz, then that would have been even more effective. But since we weren't playing jazz and playing jazz, mixing jazz with rock, pop, gospel, R&B, I mean, all that stuff, then that's what made the difference of it. It made it unique.
It was very unique.
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
It'd never been done before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Still.
Yes.
Yeah, you still don't hear it out there. Devin and John want to know, have you ever lived in Chula Vista?
Nope.
Oh,
But I was born in San Diego. And
Okay.
yeah, San Diego, California.
Devin
right
and John went to Chula Vista High School.
Near Chula Vista. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I was born in a hospital called Duke Hospital, on a street called Duke. It doesn't exist anymore at all. We're talking about 1948. So everything is different now. Everything. It's the streets,
Including
not there.
you.
Yeah, I'm not there either. So that's it. Grew up in, I'll say 5 years old, moved to Compton. Compton, California was all farmers market. Back then, a lot of horse trails, a lot of swamps, and now it's a lot of houses.
Now it's Compton. Yeah.
Yeah, now it's Compton.
Gary comes to us from Florida. Who were your musical influences?
Oh, I loved everyone. I had no particular artist. I mean, I like I said, I loved jazz. I loved country and western back then. I mean, I would listen to. I loved the Everly Brothers. I loved Charlie Pride, Hank Snow, Hank Williams. I mean, the list goes on. And I love Latin music. I love the Mongo Santa Maria. I loved listening to Cuchao, you know, the Mumbo, all that stuff. I was listening to, of course, the Fania All-Stars when that came in. But I also love listening to a lot of the rock and roll. I love listening to people like Gino. I forgot his name.
Which one?
That's what I said. Thank you. And,
Oh, On Board, Gino Vanelli. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And speaking of Gino Vanelli, we were recording our song "Summer" in a studio called Sound City when he was recording in there. We all shared the same studios in California. We just never had a chance to see each other, and we were all younger then. At least I was, but what was I saying?
I don't know.
That's the only.
I have no idea.
That's the only
Something
part
about Gino Vanelli. Back in the day, you were recording in the same
No, I
studio.
wasn't
with
talking
Gino.
about Gino Vanelli. See,
Oh.
don't put words in my mouth. Anyway.
Was he talking about Gino Vanelli? Thank you.
No, I was not. But I had the opportunity of playing or listening to all sorts of music. I love listening to Jimmy Smith on the organ, the B3 organ, the jazz, you know, Richard Groove Holmes, Jimmy McGriff, and then I would listen to when I said Gino Vanelli, I was also talking about Ambrosia, of course Carlos Santana, and of course all the music that he was inspired by, like Tito Puente,
Sure.
you know, Oye Como Va, all that. But I listened to everyone, and then I
Which
would
makes sense.
Basically, a music junkie.
Yeah,
Yes.
it makes
Yeah.
sense. I mean, the sound that War created makes sense with that broad of a variety of influences. I mean,
love all types of music, and my wife is very, very adamant about talking to friends and people that she doesn't know on Instagram about listening to all sorts of music and going to different venues, listening to rock, R&B, reggae. She even loves hip hop. She loves everything. Our kids, our grandchildren, they love all types of music.
good.
And of course, she also grew up. Her dad used to be one of the beatniks back in Greenwich Village, where he threw the Rent parties, and he was one of the poets, the beat poets, with Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, Leroy Jones, Langston Hughes. I mean, the list goes on. He was, I would say, roommate with Charlie Parker at the time. You know, I mean, so we're talking about hardcore jazz back then, and he could tell me a thing or two. So, and I learned some things from him, as well as Eric Burden. Eric Burden taught me how to pretty much improvise in front of an audience without going by a script. You know, get rid of the script, and he taught me how to not think.
Sure.
And he wanted to be an actor, and I didn't, but I guess I was forced into being an actor, which I love every minute of it because it keeps me motivated, energetic, and young, and handsome.
Teresa said she's not sure.
What?
That's not me. It's your.
You're not sure? All right. That's it.
I apologize. We didn't get to all your questions, but we do need to kind of wrap things up. What can people look forward to at a live war show?
Same songs, but a different vibe. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Entertaining. And oh, with my phone, sorry. And
That's how into the interview is. He gonna call. He's like, oh, who's getting me out of this? Oh.
and that's our church, you know, to be able to pretty much preach the gospel.
The band sounds phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, the band sounds phenomenal. Like you guys sound, you're so tight. Like it's,
Thank you.
I don't remember, but thank you.
Yeah. Oh, the band is just, it's great. Was it, the last question for you guys, was it building the band as it is now, but not losing the authenticity of what the sound of war was and is? Was that difficult? How would, you poached a lot of players. You told me that last time. You stole a lot of people.
Yeah, I always tell any new players that come in the band, I always tell them one thing, like we were talking about. Don't start thinking. The people don't know anything about you tuning a guitar. They don't know if it's in tune or out of tune. And if you, and do me a favor, don't tune up. Because if you tune up, then you start sounding perfect. I don't want to sound perfect. People's ears, your normal people who are not musicians, don't know the difference. As a matter of fact, I don't know the difference. And I don't really want to know the difference. But when you play from here, then that's what it's all about.
In fact, to go further on why can't we be friends, there's a bad note at the beginning.
Oh, man.
Okay?
Don't let them know.
There's a bad note at the beginning. It's not quite there. And I left it because it felt right. Okay? And he used to go, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. You can't leave that there. I said, yeah, it's there.
And I
Don't worry.
forgot.
And nobody ever said anything about it ever. You know?
It was intentional, right?
But I have been
It
asked.
just happened.
Yeah.
I have been asked.
And I liked it. So I went, good. Let's leave
That's
it.
fun. Listen, I want to say thank you very much to both of you for taking the time to be up here and
gotta go
sharing your
now?
stories with us. And they got to go.
Sorry.
There's shows coming up. You guys are fantastic as always, and this is the way I love to. I love to start our All Access Pass series with folks like yourselves. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank
being
you
honest,
all.
telling
Thank
stories.
you. Thank you, everybody.
Do me a favor, everybody. Help me thank
Amazing.
Lonnie and Jerry of War. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you around.